Isabela, you'll have us both tonight. Dante Moretti's words hung in the air of the luxurious bedroom like a sentence handed down by a judge. Isabela Romano, now Isabela Moretti, felt her heart leap into her throat. She stood by the panoramic window of the villa in the hills of Rome, staring out at the shimmering lights of the city below, desperately trying to hold herself together. The white lace lingerie she had found laid out on the bed earlier clung to her body. 22 years old, a virgin, and now the wife of the two most dangerous men in Italy. Dante is right, sweetheart. We share everything, always. Dmitri's voice came from behind her. It was warmer than his brother's, but no less firm. Isabela felt the heat radiating from his body, even though he hadn't touched her yet. The scent of his expensive cologne floated around her, intoxicating, mixing with the adrenaline and fear coursing through her veins. She turned sharply, pressing both palms against her own chest in an unconscious act of defense. Her long dark hair fell across her bare shoulders. Her green eyes blazed with a mixture of fury and terror. That was not part of the agreement. I told your mother. Our mother has no say in this matter. Dante cut her off coldly, moving toward her from one side, while Dmitri closed in from the other. Dmitri wore a black silk robe, open, his tattooed chest exposed beneath it. Dante was dressed in elegant trousers and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms covered in intricate tattoos, Renaissance scenes intertwined with Moretti family symbols. His dark eyes glittered dangerously in the candlelit room. Isabela backed away until her shoulders hit the cold glass of the window. The twins were physically identical, two men of 28, with powerful builds, dark hair swept back, and jaws dusted with several days of stubble. But in the way they moved, in the look in their eyes, they were completely different. Dante was ice, every movement precise, controlled, calculated. Dmitri burned like fire. His gaze was electric, full of raw emotion. Listen to me, Bella. Dmitri used the nickname she was hearing for the first time that night. We know all of this is happening fast, but you are our wife now. We're not forcing you into anything, but we need to establish certain things from the beginning. This family, this life, demands absolute trust. Trust. Isabela almost laughed. The hysteria was rising in her throat. I was sold like property to pay off my father's debt. I met you 3 days before the wedding. How am I supposed to trust you? The silence that followed was heavy. Isabela watched the muscles in Dante's jaw tighten, but it was Dmitri who spoke first, his voice unexpectedly soft. I'll show you something. He crossed to the wall and pressed a hidden panel. A section slid back, revealing a safe. He entered a code, removed a thick folder of documents, and handed it to Isabela. What is this? Her hands trembled as she took the papers. The marriage contract between your father and our family, Dante said, lighting a cigar and leaning against the dark furniture. Read the second page. Isabela turned to it, and felt her legs give out beneath her. Dmitri caught her immediately, guiding her to the edge of the enormous canopied bed. She sat down heavily, unable to look away from the document. She whispered the words aloud. My father borrowed $2 million 2 years ago, for gambling debts. Confirmed, Dante said without emotion. He had 1 year to repay at 20% interest. He didn't pay a single dollar. Nausea rolled through Isabela. Her father, Marco Romano, had always struggled with gambling, but she never knew it had gone this far. She read further down the page and found another clause. In the event that the debtor is unable to repay the outstanding sum, the debtor's daughter, Isabela Romano, shall be surrendered to the Moretti family as compensation and shall be joined in marriage to the sons of the family, Dante and Dmitri Moretti. She read the words aloud, her voice breaking with each one. This is unbelievable. Your father signed this document voluntarily. Dante exhaled smoke through his nose, watching her with an unreadable expression. He knew exactly what he was offering as collateral. Isabela closed her eyes, feeling hot tears pressing beneath her lids. Everything began to fall into place. Her father's strange phone calls over the past months. The way he looked at her over breakfast 3 weeks ago, his eyes full of a desperation she couldn't name. The sudden visit from the Moretti matriarch to their small apartment. 3 weeks earlier, Isabela had been mixing paint at her palette in the little studio she rented in Trastevere, Rome's artist's quarter. It was a Thursday morning, and sunlight was pouring through the tall windows, illuminating her latest work, a portrait of an old woman who sold flowers at Campo de Fiori. The Academy of Fine Arts was demanding, but Isabela loved every moment of it. Art was her escape, her way of expressing what words couldn't hold. Her phone broke the silence. Her father, calling for the third time that morning. "Papa, I'm in the middle of. Isabela, you need to come home. Right now?" Marco's voice was strange. Choked. "What happened? Is Mama okay? Just come back. Please." Half an hour later, Isabela stepped into their small fourth-floor apartment. No elevator, and stopped dead in the doorway. What she saw made the air leave her lungs. In their tiny living room sat a woman in an elegant black Prada suit, her silver hair pulled into a flawless chignon. She was flanked by 3 men in black suits, bodyguards, clearly, and her father was on his knees on the floor, weeping. "Papa." Isabela lunged forward, but one of the men stepped into her path. "Let go of my daughter," Marco screamed. The woman raised one hand, and the bodyguard immediately stepped aside. Isabela rushed to her father, pulling him to his feet. His eyes were bloodshot. His cheeks were soaked with tears. "Signorina Isabela Romano, I understand," the woman said, addressing her in Italian with a faint Sicilian accent. Her voice was smooth as silk and equally cold. "Please sit. We need to speak about your family's future. Who are you?" Isabela stepped protectively in front of her father. "My name is Lucia Moretti. I am the mother of Dante and Dmitri Moretti, and your father owes me a considerable sum of money which, I'm afraid, he will never be able to repay." The ground shifted under Isabela's feet. Moretti. That name was legendary in Rome, in all of Italy. The family, as those who knew referred to them, was the oldest and most powerful in the country. They controlled everything from art importation to criminal operations across all of Europe. "How much?" she whispered. 3,800,000 euros, including interest. Lucia examined her perfectly manicured nails. "Your father has no chance whatsoever of gathering that sum. Do you know what we normally do with people who steal from us, Isabela?" Isabela glanced at her father. He was weeping silently now, his shoulders shaking. She had never seen him so completely broken. "Please," she whispered. "There has to be another way. I can work. I can pay in installments." "You study art?" Lucia cut her off with a small smile. "How much do you earn from painting?" 1,000 euros a month. 2,000 in a good month. At that rate, you'd need 150 years to pay off the debt. Silence swallowed the room. Isabela could hear her own heartbeat. But Lucia rose, moving toward the window. "There is an alternative. You see, my sons need a wife, someone appropriate. Intelligent. Beautiful. Someone who understands art and culture, but strong enough to endure the realities of our world." "No." Isabela stepped back. "You can't be serious." "I am deadly serious, my dear. I am 58 years old, and I have no grandchildren. My sons are too consumed building the empire to find a suitable partner. So I found one for them." Isabela turned to her father, searching for any sign of resistance. But Marco was only nodding, his face twisted in silent suffering. "Papa, say something." "I signed an agreement, sweetheart," Marco whispered. 2 years ago I thought I could pay it back. I thought. You signed an agreement handing me over." Isabela felt hysterical laughter clawing up her throat. "How could you?" "I had to, Bella." Marco's voice cracked, every word soaked in desperation. "They were going to kill our entire family. You, your mother. I told myself I'd find the money, that I'd recover, but I only sank deeper. Enough drama." Lucia clapped her hands once, sharp and decisive. "Isabela, I am giving you 48 hours to make a decision. Either you marry my sons, and your family walks away debt-free, safe, under the protection of the Moretti name. Or, I'd rather not paint that picture. What if I run?" Lucia laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "You are welcome to try, dear girl. But we will find you, and the consequences for your family will be most unfortunate. You are not a prisoner, Isabela, but your choice will affect the lives of everyone you love." That night, Isabela sat in her bedroom staring at a photograph of herself and her mother on the beach in Positano, 5 years ago, when they were still happy, before everything fell apart. Her mother, Sophia, had gone into remission after chemotherapy. Now the cancer had returned, and the treatments were expensive. She looked at her phone. 48 hours. Bella. Dimitri's voice pulled her back from her memories. Isabela opened her eyes, and realized she was still sitting on the edge of the bridal bed, clutching the documents. Are you still with us? I'm sorry. I was remembering. Dante crushed his cigar and approached, then did something she never anticipated. He dropped to one knee before her, his dark eyes level with hers. Isabela stopped breathing. This cold, calculating man was kneeling in front of her. Listen to me carefully, he said, his voice low and intense. We did not choose this arrangement any more than you did. Our mother organized it. But now that you're here, we intend to make the most of it. We are not monsters, Bella. You have rights. Rights, she repeated bitterly. Yes. Dmitri sat beside her on the bed, his thigh pressing lightly against hers through the thin lace. The heat radiating off him was almost overwhelming. You told our mother you wanted a separate room. You'll have it. You want to continue your studies? We'll set up a private studio here in the villa. The finest instructors will come to you. You want one day a week entirely to yourself? You'll have that too, Dante added. But in return, you need to understand who we are and how we operate. Isabela looked between them. Her mind was spinning. Who are you exactly? Dante stood and retrieved a folder from the desk. He returned and opened it in front of her. Inside were photographs, documents, charts. The Moretti family controls 53% of the illegal art importation in Italy, Dante began, as calmly as if he were discussing the weather forecast. We operate through the ports of Naples, Genoa, and Venice. We launder money through art galleries, auctions, and private collections. We also control casinos in Rome, Milan, and Sicily. That's complicated. Isabela stared at the numbers, her artist's mind already detecting patterns, structures. Which is exactly why you fit perfectly here. Dmitri touched her shoulder, and she felt a tremor move through her at the contact. You have an eye for art. You can tell an authentic Caravaggio from a forgery. That skill is invaluable to our business. You want me to work for you? Isabela turned to him, eyes wide. We want you to be with us in this, Dante corrected. Not for us, with us. You are a Moretti now. That means you are family. And in this family, everyone contributes. Isabela stood abruptly, stepping away from Dmitri's hand, and began pacing the room. Her mind was dissecting every angle of the situation. It was a trap, clearly, but it was a trap that could give her power. Opportunity. What do I get in return? She asked, stopping and turning to face them. Besides protection for my family. The twins exchanged a glance. A slow smile spread across Dmitri's face. Smart girl, he murmured. Money, said Dante. Your own account with a monthly deposit of 50,000 euros. Freedom to move through Rome with a security detail. Access to our contacts in the art world. And when you give us a child, 1 million euros placed directly in your private account. Isabela swallowed. It was a fortune. Enough to secure her mother the finest treatment. Enough to. And this. She gestured toward the bed, her cheeks burning. The three of us. Dmitri rose and came to her, his eyes searching her face. We are not forcing anything tonight, Bella. But you need to understand, this marriage will be consummated. With both of us. Eventually. That is not negotiable. Why both of you? She whispered. Why can't you simply choose one? Because we have shared everything since birth, Dante said, now standing behind her, his warm breath grazing her neck. Every woman. Every business. Every decision. We are one, even though we are two. Isabela felt the weight of standing between them. Dmitri in front, Dante behind. Her body responded against her will, pulsing with something dark, something unfamiliar. Fear mixing with something far more primitive. Give us a chance, Dmitri said softly, lifting her chin until she was looking directly into his eyes. Tonight, let us simply know each other. No pressure. No rush. Before she could form a response, his lips were on hers. The kiss was slow, exploratory, his tongue gently grazing her lower lip. Asking, not demanding. Isabela surprised herself by parting her lips, letting him in. He tasted of whiskey and something sweet. Mint, perhaps. His hands found her waist and drew her closer. She felt Dante's presence behind her, his hands sliding along her shoulders, his lips brushing her neck. Two men, two pairs of hands, two entirely different touches. Dmitri was tender, unhurried. Dante was certain, possessive. Beautiful, Dante murmured against her ear. I knew you'd be perfect. Dmitri's kiss deepened, and Isabela felt her knees weaken. She had never been kissed before, not truly. A 22-year-old intern at the university had tried once, but it had been awkward and forgettable. This was like flames consuming every rational thought she had. Then the sound of shattering glass cut through the moment. All three froze. Dante pulled back immediately, drawing a pistol from behind his waistband. A real pistol. Stay here, Dmitri ordered, pushing Isabela behind the bed. Don't move, no matter what you hear. What's happening? Isabela grabbed his arm, terror flooding through her. Probably nothing. But in our world, you never assume. Dmitri pulled his own weapon from the nightstand drawer. Dante, check the west side. I'll take the east. The brothers moved out of the room, leaving Isabela crouched behind the bed, trembling. Then came the shots. 3 loud explosions that made her scream and press her palms over her ears. The bedroom doors flew open. Isabela screamed, but it was Dmitri, his face hard. Get dressed, quickly. We have a problem. What? What happened? The Castellano family. Trying to send a message. He threw her a robe. 3 armed men came through the garden. Dante is handling them, but we need to get you to the safe room. Isabela pulled on the robe with shaking hands. Dmitri took her hand and led her down the corridor to a hidden door concealed behind the portrait of an older woman, likely a Moretti ancestor. Behind it was a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Where are we going? We have a safe room 3 floors below the villa. A bunker. You could survive weeks inside if necessary. They ran down the stairs, lit only by tiny emergency lights. Isabela could hear her own heartbeat. She could feel the sweat in her palms. This was real. The danger was real. Not a film, not a novel. They reached a steel door. Dmitri entered a code and shoved it open, guiding Isabela inside. Stay here. Don't open it for anyone. Only me or Dante. Understood? Dmitri. He kissed her hard. Desperately. I will come back. I promise. Then he was gone. The door sealed shut behind him with a final, metallic click. Isabela was alone. The small room held a bed, a compact bathroom, a refrigerator. On the wall hung a monitor displaying feeds from different areas of the villa. She sat on the bed, watching the screens with horror. On one of the feeds, she saw Dante. He was in the main hall, standing over a body, a motionless body. Blood stained the white marble floor beneath it. Dante held his pistol. His face was completely devoid of emotion. He had just killed a man. Isabela pressed her hand over her mouth to hold back a scream. She watched Dmitri run toward his brother. She watched more security arrive. She watched them remove the bodies. 3 men were dead. 3 people had lost their lives on her wedding night. The hours crawled. Isabela couldn't look away from the screens. Couldn't stop shaking. At 3 a.m, she heard the code being entered at the door. She backed into the corner, bracing herself. The door opened. Dante entered first, his white shirt now stained with blood. Dmitri was just behind him, a cut across his cheekbone. It's over, Dante said directly. They're all dead. We've sent a message to the Castellanos. Isabela stared at them. Her mind couldn't process any of it. You killed someone. I saw you. Yes. Dante crossed to her and crouched so their eyes were level. I killed 3 men tonight. I will kill more if that's what it takes to protect this family. To protect you. I can't. Isabela felt the room tilt. Dmitri was at her side instantly, steadying her. Breathe, Bella. Just breathe. You have a decision to make. Dante's voice was hard now. We can arrange a new identity for you. Money. Tickets to anywhere in the world. You can leave and start over. Your family will be safe, the debt canceled. But you can never come back. Isabela looked at him through burning tears. And if I stay? If you stay, Dmitri said gently, wiping the tears from her cheeks. You are in this forever. There is no going back. You will see things that will terrify you. You will be forced to make impossible decisions. But you will never be alone. We protect what is ours. Isabela closed her eyes. She thought of her mother, who needed treatment. Of her father, who despite everything, loved her. Of the artist's life she had always dreamed of, painting in peace. But then she thought of something else. The way Dante looked at her, as though she was something precious. The possibility of being part of something larger. Something with power. She opened her eyes and looked between them. If I stay, I want to learn everything. How the business works. How to protect myself. How to truly be part of this world. I will not be a pretty wife in a cage. Dante smiled for the first time that night. A full, genuine smile, full of respect. That is exactly what I wanted to hear. Are you certain? Dmitri asked softly. There is no going back. Isabela straightened. I am certain. I am Isabela Moretti, and no one will ever make my decisions for me again. Dmitri rose and came to her, his dark eyes holding desire, and something deeper. Respect. Perhaps the very beginning of love. Welcome to the family, Bella. He kissed her, and this time, Isabela answered without hesitation. Her hands found his neck and held on. She felt Dante behind her, his hands finding her waist, his lips at her shoulder. Tonight, Dante whispered in her ear. We begin. Properly. Together. Isabela knew that her life had just changed forever. There was no road back to being the innocent art student. She was part of a world of darkness, danger, and desires she was only beginning to understand. And for the first time in her life, she felt completely alive. When the twins guided her back upstairs, the first pale light of dawn was beginning to touch the Roman sky. Isabela Romano had died that night in the attack. Isabela Moretti had just been born, braver, stronger, and ready for everything her new life would bring. What happened between the three of them as the city woke and the light changed, what began in the quiet hours before morning, was something none of them had anticipated. The forced contract dissolved into something rarer, something that had no name in the language of power or crime. It was the beginning of love in a world where love was a luxury few could afford. But they three, against all odds, had found it, and they were prepared to burn the world down to protect it. Isabela woke in Dmitri's arms. The afternoon sun was streaming through the tall villa windows, casting long golden stripes across the marble floor. It was 3 in the afternoon. She had slept 14 hours. The memories of the night before returned like a wave. She lay still, letting them settle. What had passed between the three of them, the tenderness and the intensity, had left something shifted inside her that she couldn't yet name. Dante had been exacting, present, commanding every moment with absolute focus. Dmitri had been passionate, his touch urgent and deep. Together they had shown her that the world held sensations she hadn't known existed. Good afternoon, Sleeping Beauty. Dante's voice came from the armchair by the window, where he sat with a laptop, reading glasses resting on his nose, an Armani suit perfectly pressed across his broad shoulders. Dmitri had to step out for a business meeting, he said. He'll be back this evening. Isabela sat up, pulling the sheet against her, suddenly self-conscious in the afternoon light. Dante noticed and smiled faintly. A little late for modesty, don't you think? I know every inch of you. Bella, every place that makes you tremble. He closed the laptop and approached the bed. But I appreciate the innocence. It's charming. Where's my clothing? The staff brought your new wardrobe this morning. He nodded toward the double doors of the dark wood closet. Chanel, Valentino, Versace. All in your size. My mother was very meticulous with your measurements. Isabela crossed to the closet, sheet wrapped around her, and pulled the doors open. She drew a sharp breath. Hundreds of pieces hung in perfect rows. Dresses, skirts, blouses, all of the highest quality. Drawers filled with lace lingerie in every color. Shoes lined up like a boutique display. This is too much, she whispered. You are a Moretti now. You represent this family. Dante came to stand behind her, his presence filling the room. Everything you wear tells the world who you are. Power, beauty, danger. He selected a black dress, form-fitting, with a deep neckline. Wear this. We have dinner tonight with important people. You need to look like the queen you are. I didn't agree to any dinner. Isabela turned to face him, lifting her chin. Dante laughed, a deep, dark sound. Oh, my little fighter. I love it when you resist. But understand this clearly. He caught her chin, tilting her face up to his. In this world, there are rules. You will appear tonight at my side. You will smile. You will be charming. And in return, tomorrow morning I begin teaching you everything you want to know about our business. Deal? Isabela considered it. She could push back. But to what end? She needed to play this intelligently. Fine. But I want the lessons to start at 10. Dante kissed her. Quick, possessive. I am not a morning person. 2 hours later, Isabela stood before the mirror and barely recognized herself. The black dress fitted her like a second skin. Her hair was twisted into a loose chignon with a few strands framing her face. The makeup was subtle but dramatic, smoky eyes that made her green irises look like emeralds. Perfect. Dante entered the bathroom in a full black suit, his hair swept back. He carried a small velvet case and opened it to reveal a diamond necklace that must have cost more than her parents had earned in their entire lives combined. 36 diamonds, each the size of a pinky nail, set in an intricate pattern. Dante, it belonged to my grandmother. Now it belongs to you. He fastened it around her neck, his fingers grazing her skin. Every Moretti wife wears it. It is a symbol. It tells the world you are protected, untouchable. Isabela touched the stones, feeling their weight and their meaning. Ready? Dante offered his arm. As ready as I'll ever be. She took it and felt a flutter of something that wasn't quite fear. The dinner took place at an elegant restaurant in central Rome, a venue that normally required reservations 3 months in advance. But when the Morettis arrived, the entire restaurant had been reserved for them and their guests alone. Isabela was introduced as Signora Moretti to dozens of people, businessmen, politicians, gallery owners. All of them were gracious. All of them had fear in their eyes alongside their smiles. Dmitri arrived midway through the dinner. His presence lit the room immediately. He kissed Isabela long and warmly, unconcerned with who was watching. Forgive me for the delay, darling. Business, he murmured against her ear. You look as though the gods made you personally. The dinner itself was a strange and remarkable experience. Isabela sat between the twins, their hands resting on her at intervals, possessive, warm. They spoke of art, politics, business. And to her own surprise, Isabela found she could keep up. Signora Moretti, an older man with silver hair and a diamond ring, leaned across the table. I hear you study art. What is your opinion on the Uffizzi's recent acquisition? Isabela understood instantly that this was a test. Everyone was watching. I believe they acquired 2 false Botticellis, she said calmly, and took a sip of wine. The technique is convincing, but the pigments are too fresh. A genuine 15th century Botticelli would show a particular kind of fading in the blue tones. That's absent here. Silence fell over the table. Then the man laughed, loud and genuine. Dante, your wife has a better eye than half the experts in Europe. He raised his glass. A toast to Signora Moretti. Every glass lifted. Isabela felt Dante's hand press harder against her thigh, a quiet expression of pride. Dmitri leaned in and kissed her neck. You are extraordinary, he whispered. On the drive back to the villa, the atmosphere in the limousine was charged. Dante sat across from Isabela and Dmitri, studying her in the dim interior. You were perfect tonight, he said quietly. Everyone was impressed. I only told the truth. That truth just earned us €500,000, Dmitri said, laughing. Old Giovanni is paying us to have you authenticate his entire collection before the grand auction next month. 87 paintings. Isabela looked between them. Seriously? I told you that you were valuable, Dante said, leaning forward. Your knowledge, your eye, people will trust you more than any certified expert, because you have nothing to gain from lying. You're a Moretti. We're already rich. For the first time in her life, Isabela felt a surge of genuine power. Her passion, her knowledge, they weren't just a hobby. They were a weapon. When do I start? Tomorrow, as promised. Dante leaned back. But first, I want to reward you for tonight. When they arrived at the villa, Dante took her hand and guided her, not to the main bedroom, but to another wing entirely. Where are we going? To your studio. Dmitri was just behind them. We prepared a surprise. He opened the double doors, and Isabela stopped breathing. The room was enormous. One entire wall was floor-to-ceiling glass with a panoramic view of Rome. But what was inside made tears rush to her eyes. Easels, dozens of them. Paints of every kind and color imaginable. Canvases of every size. A drawing bench. A digital art scanner. An authentication workstation with microscopes, UV lamps, chemical testing equipment. Oh my God, she whispered, stepping inside as if entering a sacred space. Everything you need, Dante said from the doorway, watching her. This space is yours alone. You can come here whenever you want. Work on whatever you want. Isabela turned to them, tears running down her cheeks. Why? Why do you do all of this for me? Dmitri stepped forward and dried her tears gently. Because you are ours, he said simply. And we take care of what is ours. We make it flourish. He kissed her, and this time Isabela didn't pause to think. She kissed him back with everything she felt, her hands curling around his neck, her whole body pressing forward. She felt Dante behind her, his hands finding the zip of her dress. As the Rome skyline glittered through the glass wall and the night deepened around them, the three of them came together in Isabela's studio, among the easels and the canvases and the scent of fresh paint. The diamonds still cool at her throat. What followed was not performance or obligation. It was surrender, mutual, chosen, unhurried. Each touch deliberate, each moment belonging to all three of them equally. When it was over, they lay together on the velvet sofa in the corner. Isabela's heart was still racing. Her cheek rested against Dmitri's chest. "I love this studio," she whispered. The twins laughed, the same laugh, two voices in perfect unison. "We knew you would," Dmitri said, kissing her hair. "But now sleep. You have a big day tomorrow." The following morning, at precisely 10 o'clock, Isabela stood in the main office of the Moretti complex, separated from the villa by a walled garden. The building was sleek glass and steel, indistinguishable from any corporate headquarters on the outside. But inside, it was the brain of Italy's most powerful criminal operation. Dante sat behind a vast mahogany desk, 3 monitors in front of him. Dmitri stood by the window, finishing a call in Russian. On the conference table lay dozens of folders. "Sit down." Dante gestured to the chair across from him. Lesson 1. Organizational Structure. He turned the laptop toward her. On the screen was a diagram, a complex web of connections. "The Moretti family has 347 permanent employees," Dante began, divided into 5 main divisions: art importation, casinos, money laundering, protection, and debt collection. Dmitri and I divide responsibilities equally. I manage strategy and finance. He manages operations and human resources. Human resources. Isabela couldn't help smiling. "Every business needs good people," Dmitri said, ending the call and joining them. "Even an illegal one. We pay well. We provide for families. Loyalty is earned, not enforced. In most cases." Over the next 4 hours, Isabela received a crash course in organized crime. She learned how art was smuggled from the Middle East and Africa, often concealing stolen treasures. She learned how casinos laundered money through thousands of small, untraceable transactions. She learned about corruption networks reaching the highest levels of the Italian government. It was overwhelming. It was terrifying. And she found it completely fascinating. Question. She raised her hand during Dante's explanation of Swiss banking accounts. "Go ahead. If casino laundering is so effective, why involve art at all? It seems far riskier." Dante and Dmitri exchanged a look. Dante's mouth curved into a slow smile. "Excellent question. 2 answers. First, passion. Our family has been in the art business for generations. It's part of who we are. Second, influence. The art world gives us access to people that casinos never could. Diplomats, royalty, heads of state. Everyone collects art, and we are the ones who supply it." "I understand," Isabela said, leaning forward. "So art isn't just money, it's power." "Exactly." Dmitri sat beside her. "And that is precisely why you are so valuable. You can enter rooms we cannot. Auctions in London, galleries in Paris, private collections in New York. As an expert, as a woman of taste and education, you will open doors that are closed to us." Isabela felt genuine excitement sparking through her. "When do I start?" "In 2 weeks." Dante slid another folder toward her. "Giovanni, the man you met last night, is paying us 500,000 euros to have you authenticate his collection. 87 paintings. Can you do it?" Isabela flipped through the photographs. "Most of these look authentic, but this one is false. And this one. And this." She pointed to 3 pieces. "I'll need to see them in person to be certain, but the pigments are wrong. The brushwork is off too. Good forgeries. But forgeries." Dmitri let out a low whistle. "Giovanni paid €4 million for those 3 last year. He'll be furious," Dante said. "But he'll thank us for warning him before the public embarrassment." "Well done, Bella." The education continued into the afternoon. Isabela learned the codes the family used for internal communication. She learned how to spot an undercover officer. She learned basic self-defense, Dmitri personally showing her how to break a grip. "Always target the eyes, throat, or groin," he instructed, holding her in a demonstration hold. "Don't try to be fair. Survival is the only thing that matters." Isabela practiced the movement, her elbow tapping carefully against his ribs. Good, but harder. Treat it like a real threat. Isabela drew a breath and drove her elbow in with full force. Dmitri grunted, releasing her. Now that's more like it, he laughed, rubbing his side. My little warrior. That evening, they returned to the villa for dinner and found Lucia Moretti waiting in the dining room, her presence as commanding as ever. Isabela, dear. Lucia rose and kissed her on both cheeks. I heard you made quite an impression last night. I'm proud. Thank you, Lucia. Isabela took her seat, still uncertain how to navigate her relationship with this woman. Mama, what brings you? Dante asked, pouring wine. Can't a mother visit her children and her new daughter? Lucia raised an eyebrow, but there was dry humor in her eyes. But since you ask, I come with a warning. The Castellanos are not happy with how we responded to the attack. They are planning a retaliation. The atmosphere changed immediately. Dante set down his glass. His face hardened. How serious? My source says they are planning an abduction. Lucia looked directly at Isabela. Of you, my dear. They believe you are the weak point. Cold spread through Isabela's stomach. When? Soon. Which is why I am increasing your personal protection. Lucia nodded, and 3 men entered the dining room. These will be your permanent security detail, Carlo, Marco, and Alessandro. Former special forces. The finest available. The men inclined their heads. All tall, all powerfully built, their expressions leaving no doubt that they were absolutely serious. One of them will be with you at all times, Lucia continued. Even in your studio. We cannot take risks. Isabela looked at Dante and Dmitri. Their faces were hard, but she saw something beneath the surface. Concern. Real concern. I understand, she said quietly. The dinner was tense, the conversation forced. After Lucia left, Isabela felt the full weight of what her life had become. She was not only a wife anymore. She was a target. That night, under the hot shower, Isabela let the water take the tension from her shoulders. The door of the shower opened. She turned and found Dmitri stepping in, his tattooed skin glistening in the steam. Frightened? He asked softly, drawing her toward him. Terrified, she admitted. But also not. Which is strange. Dmitri laughed quietly, his hands moving gently through her hair. It's not strange. You're stronger than you know, Bella. I saw that from the very first day. Most women would have wept and begged. You negotiated. You set conditions. That takes strength. Isabela looked up at him, water running down both their faces. Dmitri, do you ever regret it? Forcing me into this? He was quiet for a long moment, his hands stilled against her back. At first, yes. It felt like we had bought a person. But now, he kissed her gently. Now I believe it was fate. You are exactly what we needed. I hope that someday you'll feel the same. I'm starting to, she whispered. It frightens me. But I'm starting to. They stepped out of the shower. Dmitri wrapped her in a soft towel and dried her slowly, carefully, every gesture full of a tenderness that made her chest ache. Then he took her hand and led her back to the bedroom. Dante was already there, stretched across the bed, reading through documents. He glanced up as they entered. Everything all right? It will be. Isabela climbed into the bed between them. The warmth of both men settled around her like armor. As long as I have you both, she thought. Dante set aside his documents and turned off the lamp. In the darkness, she felt their hands, not demanding, but steady, reassuring, protective. Sleep, Bella, Dante murmured. You're safe here, always. And to her own astonishment, she believed him. She fell asleep between the 2 most dangerous men in Italy, feeling safer than she ever had in her life. But when dawn came, her phone rang. Unknown number. Isabela? She answered, still half asleep. Hello, Isabela Romano. The voice was male. Cold. It's Moretti now, she said. Not for much longer. Laughter. Tell your husbands the Castellanos send their regards. We'll be seeing you very soon, Belladonna. The line went dead. Isabela sat up in the bed, shaking. Dante woke immediately, reading her face. What happened? A call. The Castellanos. They know who I am. Dante took the phone from her. His jaw locked. He reached across and woke Dmitri with a single word. War. And Isabela knew that her new life had just become far more dangerous. But as she watched both men immediately mobilizing, planning, strategizing, ready to kill for her, she felt something unexpected rising alongside the fear. Determination. If the Castellanos wanted war, they would get war. Because Isabela Moretti was no longer the frightened girl who had been sold to pay a debt. She was a mafia queen. And queens do not run. They fight. The bullet passed centimeters from Isabela's head. The gallery window behind her exploded into 1,000 fragments. Carlo lunged forward, covering her body with his as more shots tore through the air of the elegant Rome art gallery. Screams erupted across the space. Guests scrambled for cover. Within seconds, a refined art presentation had become a war zone. Stay down. Carlo drew his weapon and returned fire toward the shooters. Isabela pressed herself against the cold marble floor, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might give out. 3 weeks had passed since the Castellano threat call. 3 weeks of heightened protection and constant vigilance, and now they had finally come. Through the smoke and chaos, she saw 4 masked men entering through the main entrance, automatic weapons in hand. But they weren't firing randomly. They were tracking her. Isabela Moretti. One of them shouted in Italian. Step forward and no one else dies. Carlo met her eyes, his expression granite. Don't move. Backup is incoming. But Isabela was looking at the bodies. 3 guests already lay in pools of blood, their elegant clothes ruined by bullets. Innocent people dying because of her. She began to rise. Carlo grabbed her arm. Signora Moretti, no? An explosion cut through his words. One of the Castellanos had thrown a flashbang into the rear of the gallery. The noise was deafening. The light was blinding. In the chaos that followed, Isabela felt powerful hands seizing her and dragging her away from Carlo's cover. I have her. The voice was triumphant. Isabela fought, kicked, bit, used every technique Dmitri had drilled into her. Her elbow connected with the attacker's nose. She heard a satisfying crack. The man cursed but held on. Then a different kind of gunfire, quieter, more controlled, precise. A sniper from the rooftop across the street, one of the Moretti team's best, was working. The man holding Isabela collapsed. A single shot through the skull. She fell with him, covered in his blood, screaming as his grip finally released. Bella. Dante's voice. Isabela looked up and saw both twins forcing their way into the gallery, weapons drawn, their security flanking them. Dante reached her first, pulling her away from the body, his hands moving quickly over her. Are you hurt? Tell me, where are you hurt? I'm not. It's not my blood. Isabela could barely breathe, the shock rolling through her in waves. Dmitri was beside her in an instant, pulling her against him, his body still shaking with adrenaline. When we got Carlo's call, when he said they were shooting at you, I thought I was going to lose my mind. The firefight was over. All 4 Castellano attackers were dead, but so were 6 innocent guests. 9 more were wounded. The gallery walls, white and pristine an hour ago, were streaked with red. Priceless works of art had been torn apart by gunfire. Get her out of here. Now. Dante's order was quiet and absolute. In the armored limousine heading back to the villa, Isabela sat between the twins and stared at her own hands. It's my fault, she whispered. All those people. It is the fault of the Castellanos, Dante said, turning her face firmly toward his. Only theirs. Do you understand me? You are not responsible for their choices. But the words didn't reach the part of her that had seen those faces. The elderly woman in the blue dress. The young man, maybe 25, who had tried to shield his girlfriend and been shot doing it. Their deaths lived in her now, and she knew they always would. At the villa, a bath had been drawn for her, warm water, calming oils. But when Isabela looked in the mirror, she saw a stranger. Her hair was matted with blood. Her face was bruised. Her dress was ruined. Dmitri entered and closed the door behind him. Let me help you. Without waiting, he began carefully unfastening her dress, his hands visibly trembling despite the steadiness of his touch. When the dress fell and revealed the blood-stained fabric beneath, she saw his jaw tighten. If that bullet had been 1 centimeter to the left. He didn't finish the sentence. His voice had broken. But it wasn't. Isabela raised her hand to his cheek, making him look at her. Dmitri pulled her against him. When Carlo called, when he said they were shooting at you, I felt my heart stop. I have never in my life been so afraid, Bella. Never. She held him, feeling the tremor of real fear moving through him. And in that moment she understood, with complete clarity, what had been quietly growing between them all along. Dmitri, she whispered, I love you. The words landed like stones in still water. Dmitri went completely still. What did you say? I love you. She said it again, steadier this time, more certain. And I love Dante. I know it's fast. I know it makes no logical sense. But it's true. Dmitri kissed her then, a kiss that held everything. Relief, joy, desperate need, all of it released at once. He lifted her into his arms and carried her gently to the bath, climbing in with her, fully dressed, not caring about the ruined suit. He washed the blood from her hair, from her skin, from every place where that terrible evening had left its mark. And Isabela let him. Never again, he said quietly, his forehead against hers. We won't let you be in danger like that again. That's impossible in this life. Isabela was honest now. But you can promise me something else. Anything. Teach me to truly fight. Not just technique. I mean train me to survive. I don't want to be protected anymore. I want to be a warrior. Dmitri studied her face for a long moment. Are you certain? It won't be comfortable. I'll have to push you past real pain for you to learn real survival. I'm certain. Then we start tomorrow. That night Isabela lay between the twins, their arms around her. Dante had spoken little since the attack, his mind working on strategy and vengeance, but his touch said everything. His hands never left her, as though he needed constant confirmation that she was still there. Dante, she said into the darkness. What do we do now? A long pause. Now, we declare war. Total. Complete. The Castellanos crossed an unforgivable line. They attacked you in a public place. Innocent people died. This is no longer business. It's personal. What does that mean in practice? In 2 days, we hit every one of their operations simultaneously. Casinos, warehouses, ports, all of it. And we do not stop until the Castellano family has been wiped from the face of the earth. Isabela felt a chill, more violence, more blood. But what was the alternative? Living in fear, waiting for the next attack? I want to help, she said quietly. No, Dante said immediately. Too dangerous. Everything I do is dangerous now. Isabela pushed herself up on one elbow, looking at him in the moonlight. You told me I'm a Moretti, that I'm family. Then let me be family. Let me contribute. Dante looked at Dmitri over her head. Something passed between them, silent, decisive. There may be a way, Dmitri said slowly. Marco Castellano, the son, has an obsession with art. Apparently, he just acquired a rare Caravaggio for 10 million euros. He's presenting it at a private viewing in 5 days. Invitation only. Isabela waited. And you are now a recognized expert. Giovanni spread word of your abilities. If Marco Castellano has heard, and I'm certain he has, he may want you to authenticate his acquisition. Isabela understood immediately. You want me to go in? As a spy. It is not a request. Dante touched her cheek. It is too dangerous. But if you're willing. I'm willing. She didn't hesitate. What do I need to do? 5 days later, Isabela stood before the mirror in her dressing room, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. Her hair was arranged in an intricate braid coiled around her head, exposing her long neck, adorned with a ruby necklace worth more than a small house. The dress was deep crimson silk, fitted precisely, with a slit that climbed dangerously high. Her makeup was dramatic, ruby lips, eyes dark and mysterious. She looked like a seductress, a femme fatale, exactly what the mission required. Beautiful. Dante's voice came from the doorway. He stood in a black suit, his expression a careful mixture of pride and worry. But remember, this is not a modeling assignment. This is a dangerous operation. I know. Isabela touched the tiny device hidden in her hairstyle, a miniature camera and microphone. I've reviewed the plan 1,000 times. Dmitri entered carrying a small evening bag. Everything you need is inside. A small blade in the lining. An emergency capsule hidden in the lipstick case, in case things go seriously wrong. And this. He handed her a small perfume bottle. Not perfume, sleeping gas. One spray in someone's face, and they're unconscious in 10 seconds. Use it only if you absolutely must. Isabela took the items and felt the weight of each one. What if Marco Castellano recognizes me? He won't. Dante handed her an elegant black case. You are Sarah Bianchi, a respected art expert from Milan. She was personally invited by Marco 3 days ago, after we planted word that Sarah might be interested in authenticating his acquisition. The real Sarah Bianchi is currently on a paid vacation in the Maldives, unreachable by phone or internet. Isabela opened the case. Perfect forged identity documents, a driver's license, credit card, business cards, all bearing the name Sarah Bianchi. Are you ready? Dmitri asked quietly. No, Isabela admitted. But I'm going anyway. The twins pulled her between them, holding her. We are with you every step, Dante murmured in her ear. 20 of our men are already in position. A sniper on the building across the street. An entry team on standby. At the first sign of trouble, we come in. And if anyone touches you, Dmitri added, his voice dropping to ice, I will tear Marco Castellano apart with my bare hands. Isabela kissed them both, long and deep, pouring her love and her fear and her determination into it. See you on the other side, she whispered. 45 minutes later, a black limousine pulled up before a grand villa in the hills behind Rome. The Castellano residence was as impressive as the Morettis, but where the Morettis favored refined modernity, the Castellanos preferred old-world splendor. Marble columns, fountains, statues at every turn. Isabela stepped out of the car. Her driver, one of the Moretti men, working undercover, held the door, and she composed herself. She was no longer Isabela Moretti. She was Sarah Bianchi, a mildly bored expert looking for her next commission. Signorina Bianchi, a young man in a suit approached, smiling broadly. What a pleasure. I'm Antonio, Signor Castellano's assistant. Please, follow me. He guided her into the main hall, where about 30 guests had gathered in evening dress, drinking champagne and admiring artwork displayed on every wall. Isabela recognized several faces from photographs Dante had shown her. Castellano allies, family heads, corrupt politicians. Signorina Bianchi. A deep voice made her turn. Marco Castellano was tall, perhaps 40, with dark hair silvering at the temples and sharp blue eyes. Handsome in a severe way, but there was something cold about him, something cruel beneath the surface. Signor Castellano, Isabela said, extending her hand and noting how he held it a moment too long, his gaze lingering too deliberately. Thank you for the invitation. The pleasure is entirely mine. Your reputation precedes you. He offered his arm. Come, let me show you the piece I need your opinion on. He led her through the room and into a private gallery. As soon as they were inside, Antonio closed the door behind them, leaving Isabela alone with Marco. A chill moved through her, but she held her composure. On the wall hung a painting. Even from a distance, Isabela could see it was striking. A Caravaggio, almost certainly from his Roman period, depicting a biblical scene in his signature chiaroscuro. Beautiful, she breathed, approaching it. She took a small magnifying glass from her bag and examined the details. The brushwork was correct. The pigments appeared authentic. But something was wrong. She became aware that Marco had moved directly behind her. Too close. What do you think? Isabela took a measured breath and chose honesty. I think you paid 10 million euros for a magnificent forgery. Silence, total and absolute. She turned and saw Marco's expression harden. Explain. The technique is flawless. The pigments are nearly right, but the canvas is too new. She pointed to one corner. Do you see here? The fibers are too uniform. A genuine canvas from the 17th century would show considerably more irregularity. This is 20th century canvas material, artificially aged. Marco stepped close to the painting, his jaw tight. You're certain? 89%. I would need chemical testing to be completely certain. But my eye tells me this is a world-class forgery. The best I have ever seen. But a forgery nonetheless. She studied his reaction carefully. Anger, embarrassment, and beneath both, respect. I knew something was wrong, he said finally, but the dealer guaranteed. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Angelo, the Caravaggio is a fake. Yes, I'm certain. I have an expert here who confirmed it. I want my money back by tomorrow morning, or I will remove your hands personally. He hung up, then turned to Isabela. His expression softened. Thank you, Signorina Bianchi. You have saved me considerable embarrassment. I owe you a favor. I'm only doing my work. Join me for a drink. It wasn't a request. Marco guided her back into the main hall. For the next hour, Isabela played her role without a single crack. She drank champagne, conversed with guests, examined other pieces in Marco's collection, and quietly identified 2 more suspicious works. All the while, her hidden camera was recording every face, every conversation, every detail. You are a fascinating woman, Sarah. Marco was at her side again, his hand resting at the small of her back. Most art experts I've encountered are dull old men. You are refreshingly different. That's very kind. Isabela tried to step forward. His hand pressed slightly. Perhaps we could get to know each other a little better. I have a private collection upstairs that I never show publicly. Would you like to see it? Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. But this was an opportunity. Private collections often held documents. Information. Of course, she said, keeping her voice light. Marco guided her to the staircase, his hand invariably at her back. Isabela could feel the weight of the small blade in her bag. The perfume bottle. She was prepared. But when they reached the upper floor, Marco didn't lead her toward a gallery. He steered her toward a closed bedroom door. Marco, I thought you were showing me art. She stopped. Oh, I will show you something. He turned, and she saw it in his eyes now. Something predatory. Deliberate. Actually, I received a very interesting call this afternoon from a contact in Milan. He told me the real Sarah Bianchi is on holiday, and that the Moretti family has been looking for someone who resembles her for an undercover operation. Isabela felt the blood drain from her face. I don't know what you're talking about. No. Marco produced a phone and showed her a photograph. Isabela and the twins at the gallery, 3 weeks ago, moments before the Castellano attack. Do you recognize this woman? Because I do. The beautiful young lady who recently married the Moretti twins. Isabela reached for her bag, but Marco was faster. He knocked it from her hand, sending it skidding across the floor. No, don't try anything clever. He produced a pistol, aimed directly at her head. Now, Isabela Moretti, you and I are going to have a long conversation about exactly how much your husbands are willing to pay to get you back. Isabela raised her hand slowly. Her mind was working fast. Dante and Dmitri had seen everything through the camera. Help was coming. She only needed to buy time. How much do you want? Oh, it's not about money, cara mia. It's about sending a message. The Morettis believe they can strike my people, destroy my business, and face no consequences. But now I hold something very valuable, their precious little wife. He stepped forward, his free hand catching her chin. I understand the twins like to share everything, Isabela. Tell me, are they generous with you? Because I have 3 brothers downstairs who would very much enjoy meeting the famous Signora Moretti. The rage that ignited in Isabela burned away every trace of fear. Every hour of training with Dmitri, every lesson, every bruise, every repetition, crystallized into a single moment of clarity. Her knee drove upward with every ounce of strength she had. Marco's own training had not prepared him for the precision of that strike. He doubled over, a strangled cry tearing from him. The gun fired, but Isabela was already moving, rolling to one side. The bullet missed her by centimeters. She threw herself forward, seizing his wrist and wrenching it with both hands. Bone cracked. The pistol clattered to the floor. She snatched it up first, hands trembling, grip firm. Don't move, she said, pointing the weapon at him. Marco laughed despite the pain. You don't have the nerve, little princess. You've never killed anyone. No, she agreed. But I'm ready to learn. The door exploded inward. Dante and Dmitri came through it, weapons raised, their security immediately filling the room. Bella. Dmitri was at her side before she could breathe, checking her over. Dante crossed directly to Marco. You put your hands on my wife. Dante, Isabela started. But it was already too late. Dante fired once, the bullet taking Marco in the knee. Marco collapsed, screaming. That is for threatening her. A second shot. The other knee. That is for calling her your toy. Dante raised the weapon to Marco's head. And this is... Dante, wait. Isabela grabbed his arm. Not here. Not like this. The police will be here within minutes. Dante turned to look at her. His dark eyes studied her face. You want me to spare him? No. Isabela's voice was absolutely steady. I want him to suffer longer. Take him. Let him pay for everything he's done, but intelligently, not out of anger. Dante held her gaze for a long, searching moment. Then he lowered the gun. Take him to the warehouse, he told his men quietly. I'll deal with him personally later. As they dragged the screaming Marco away, Dmitri turned Isabela's face toward his, searching it. Are you hurt? No. Frightened, but not hurt. She let herself lean against him, her legs suddenly weak with the drop of adrenaline. How did you know something was wrong? Your camera cut out exactly when you went upstairs, Dante said. We knew immediately it was a trap. I should have realized sooner. You were not stupid. Dmitri kissed her forehead. You were brave. You did exactly what we needed to find you. Police sirens were rising in the distance. We need to move. Dante took her hand and guided her toward a hidden exit the team had already located. In the car heading home, Isabela sat between the twins, still trembling with residual adrenaline, and allowed herself to feel what had just happened. She could have died. She could have been taken, tortured, violated. But she had not. She had survived. She had won. Isabela. Dante's voice was quiet. What you said in there, about making Marco suffer intelligently rather than in anger, that was wisdom. That was genuine leadership. I learned from the best. She managed a small smile. We love you, Dmitri said, simply, without preamble. Both of us. Completely. I know, Isabela said, looking between them. And I love you both. It is impossible and irrational and against every rule of normal society. But it is true. That night, after a long hot bath, after Dante had personally checked every inch of her for injury, Isabela lay between the twins in the darkness. Their hands were gentle over her. Not demanding. Tender. Protective. What will happen to Marco? She asked. Don't worry about that, Dante said, kissing her shoulder. He will be dealt with, painfully, but efficiently. And the rest of the Castellanos? After tonight, Dmitri said, his voice going quiet and dark, after the attempted abduction and the attack on the Moretti wife. The other family councils are already calling to condemn them. By the end of the month, they will not exist. Isabela absorbed this. An entire family's empire, erased. Because of her. She waited for guilt. It didn't come. Only a cold, clean satisfaction. I'm a monster, she whispered, for wanting them to suffer. You are not a monster, Dante said, turning her face toward his. You are a survivor. A warrior. A queen. My queen. He kissed her, and Dmitri joined them from the other side. What followed through the rest of that night was theirs alone, a language of touch and closeness that needed no translation. By the time sleep finally came for Isabela, she was lying in the dark between them, and she knew three things with absolute certainty. First, she loved two men equally, completely, without condition. Second, she would never be a victim again. She was a warrior. Third, in her body, though she didn't yet know it, a new life was beginning to grow. A daughter. Sofia Moretti. The next generation of power, beauty, and danger. But that discovery was still to come. For now there was only love and darkness, and the unbreakable certainty that together, the three of them could survive anything. Isabela Moretti stood on the balcony of her private studio, one hand resting on her rounded belly, watching the sunrise spread over Rome. 7 months. 7 months since she had discovered she was carrying a daughter, Sofia, as they had already decided. You can't sleep again. She turned. Dmitri stood in the doorway, shirtless, his tattooed chest catching the morning light, hair still loose from sleep. Even after 10 months of marriage, the sight of him still made her heart catch. Sofia is kicking. Isabela smiled and took his hand, pressing it against her. Feel here. Dmitri's face broke into a wide, open smile as a strong kick pushed against his palm. Strong like her mother. He kissed Isabela's forehead. Then he knelt and kissed her belly. Good morning, Piccola. Your Papa Dmitri loves you. Isabela ran her fingers through his hair, overwhelmed by a wave of love so deep it nearly hurt. Life had changed so dramatically in recent months. After the night with Marco Castellano, the war between the families had reached its bloody conclusion, and the Morettis had won. The Castellano Empire had been dismantled. Their leadership was dead or imprisoned, and Isabela had stopped being a protected wife. She had become an integral part of Moretti operations. Her expertise in art had opened the doors of Europe's wealthiest homes. Her intelligence had cracked complex laundering structures. Her beauty and charm had shifted the momentum of a dozen critical negotiations. She was a queen, and soon she would be a mother to the next generation's princess. Where's Dante? She asked as Dmitri rose. In with the council, final presentation on the division of Castellano territories. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands resting protectively over her belly. He'll be back for breakfast. The council still fears me. She said it as a fact, not a question. They don't fear you, darling. They respect you. There is a difference, Dmitri murmured against her neck. A woman who can identify a fake Caravaggio at a glance and break a man's nose within the same hour, that commands respect. Isabella laughed, remembering last month's incident. Don Vittorio, one of the senior council members, had made an indecent remark about her pregnancy. Before Dante or Dmitri could react, Isabella had broken his nose with her Prada clutch. Don Vittorio had apologized within seconds. Come. Dmitri took her hand. I made you breakfast. In the kitchen, he had prepared her favorite, blueberry pancakes with cream. Isabella ate with unashamed appetite. Pregnancy had done extraordinary things to her hunger. I need to ask you something, she said between bites. Anything. Your mother. Lucia. Isabella set down her fork. She's been strange lately, looking at me in a particular way, like she knows something I don't. Dmitri went very still for a fraction of a second, then shrugged, too casually. Mama is always mysterious. Don't worry about it. But Isabella had spent 10 months learning every expression these two men possessed. She knew when Dmitri was concealing something. Before she could press further, the door opened. Dante entered, suit immaculate despite the early hour, face tired. He leaned in to kiss her. How did it go? Well, the territories are divided. The Morettis now control 83% of the illegal art importation in Italy and 47% of the casinos. He sat down heavily and loosened his tie. We are now the most powerful family in the country. Congratulations, Isabella said gently, but she could see the tension in his jaw. What else? Dante looked at Dmitri. That's silent communication again. Tell her, Dmitri said quietly. She deserves to know. Know what? Isabella felt unease creeping up her spine. Dante drew a slow breath. Our mother called a special assembly. In 3 days, the full family. Every council member, every ally. She says she has an announcement to make. He paused. About you. 3 days later, the grand ballroom of Villa Moretti was filled to capacity. Over 200 guests in formal dress, all waiting. Isabella sat at the head table between Dante and Dmitri, her hand resting instinctively on her belly. Sophia was kicking relentlessly, as though she could sense her mother's tension. Lucia Moretti stood at the podium, majestic in dark purple, diamonds blazing at her throat. She lifted a glass. Family, friends, thank you for coming. Her voice carried without a microphone, the voice of someone born to lead. I have gathered you here to share a truth I have been holding for 2 years. A murmur moved through the crowd. Isabella felt Dante and Dmitri go rigid on either side of her. 2 years ago, Lucia continued, I commissioned a private investigation. I was looking for something very specific, a young woman. Intelligent, beautiful, but more than that, strong. A woman who could survive our world, who could endure violence, fear, and danger. And most importantly, a woman capable of loving my sons. Both of my sons. Equally. Completely. Every eye in the room turned to Isabella. I identified 37 potential candidates. Lucia clicked a remote. A large screen behind her illuminated photographs of different women. Daughters of businessmen, artists, academics. Each one was investigated thoroughly. Her past, her values, her strengths and vulnerabilities. Another click. A photograph of a young Isabella, perhaps 19, painting in a studio at the Academy of Fine Arts. Isabela Romano was number 23 on my list, the daughter of a gambling addict, an art student with an extraordinary eye for detail, beautiful but not vain, intelligent but not arrogant, and most importantly, someone who loved her family with a ferocity that made her willing to sacrifice herself to protect them. Isabella rose slowly. Her legs were trembling. What are you saying? Lucia descended from the podium and came directly toward her. I am saying, my dear, that your father's death was not an accident. Marco Romano was a carefully selected target, a man with a gambling addiction and mounting desperation. My people made certain he found our casinos, made certain he borrowed exactly $3 million, made certain he could not pay it back. Isabella felt the room tilt. You engineered all of it. Yes. Lucia did not look away. I tested each candidate, setting traps, creating scenarios, observing how they responded under pressure. Most failed. Some fled. Others collapsed entirely. But you. She reached up and touched Isabella's cheek. You negotiated. You fought. Even while terrified, you set conditions. I knew you were the one. Dante and Dmitri were on their feet. Mama, what in God's name? I did what was necessary. Lucia turned to them. I watched you both destroy every relationship you ever had, because no woman could accept what you are. Your bond, your need to share everything. It is extraordinary and it is permanent. You needed someone equally extraordinary. So I found her. You used our family, Isabela said. You used my father's weakness to manufacture a life I never chose. Did I? Lucia held her gaze. Let me ask you something, Isabela. If I had never intervened, if none of this had happened, what would you be doing right now? Painting in a small rented studio, struggling to pay rent each month, watching your mother die because you couldn't afford her treatment. Or, she gestured at Isabela, at the twins, at the room around them. Standing here, Signora Moretti, one of the most powerful women in Italy, carrying a beloved daughter, loved completely by two extraordinary men. Isabela wanted to rage, wanted to push back against the terrible logic of it. That does not justify. No, it doesn't. Lucia's voice softened. I am not a good person. I have done terrible things. I have manipulated lives. But look at the result. She turned to Isabela, to Dante, to Dmitri. Tell me you are unhappy. Tell me you don't love each other so deeply that losing them would mean losing yourself. Tell me that. Isabela couldn't. Because despite the manipulation, despite the coercion, despite everything, she was happy. Profoundly, impossibly happy. She turned to the twins. You knew. Did you know? No, they said together, immediately. Dante took her hands. I swear to you on everything sacred. We did not know. If we had. And what? Isabela looked between them. What would you have done differently? Silence. Because they couldn't answer that either. Dmitri pulled her into his arms, his voice unsteady. I love you, Bella. That is the only thing I know with certainty. I don't care how we arrived here. I love you with everything I have. And so do I. Dante enclosed them both. Everything else is irrelevant. Isabela closed her eyes. Tears finally came. Anger and relief and love all tangled together. Then she looked at Lucia. Now, my dear. Lucia smiled, triumphant, unhidden. I make an announcement to the people gathered in this room. You are not merely Signora Moretti. You are the next matriarch of this family. When Sophia is born, I will step down. Power will pass to all three of you. My sons for operations, and you, Isabela, for strategy, alliances, and legacy. Thunderous applause filled the ballroom. Isabela stood in the arms of the two men she loved, carrying the child who would represent their future, and understood the truth at last. Lucia had not destroyed her life. She had transformed it. 2 months later, Isabela's cry echoed through the private wing of the hospital. Her hands gripped Dante and Dmitri so hard their knuckles had gone white. One more push, Signora Moretti, the doctor said. I can see the head. I can't do it anymore. You can. Dante kissed her forehead, his own eyes full of tears. You are the strongest woman I have ever known. Do it for Sophia. Do it for our daughter, Dmitri added, his voice breaking. For her. Isabela drew the deepest breath of her life and pushed with everything she had left. The pain was immeasurable. It moved through her like fire. And then, release. And then, crying. Beautiful, furious, newborn crying. It's a girl. The doctor announced, lifting the tiny, blood-covered, perfect creature. A healthy girl. He laid Sophia against Isabela's chest. Isabela looked down at her daughter. 10 fingers. 10 toes. A small head covered in dark hair. An absolutely perfect little face. She felt love crash through her so violently, she thought her heart would give out. This was the reason for everything. This small miracle made every moment of fear, every moment of pain, worth every single second. Sophia Rosa Moretti, she whispered, kissing the tiny head. Welcome to the world, piccola mia. Dante and Dmitri stood on either side of the bed, both weeping openly, touching their daughter with reverence. She is perfect, Dmitri whispered. As perfect as her mother, Dante said, then kissed Isabela, long and soft. Thank you. Thank you for our greatest treasure. The visitors came in waves. Lucia arrived first, her face softer than Isabela had ever seen it. She held her granddaughter and looked almost undone. Sophia, my magnificent granddaughter. I already see everything in you. Isabela's mother, Sophia, her cancer now in remission thanks to the finest treatment money could provide, Moretti money, arrived weeping with joy. My little girl, a mother, Sophia held Isabela fiercely. I am so proud of you. Even Isabela's father, Marco, came. His presence weighted with discomfort, their relationship still tender from the wound Lucia's revelation had reopened. But he looked at Sophia and broke down entirely. I'm sorry, he whispered to Isabela, for everything. But looking at you now, at who you've become, I think perhaps it all happened for a reason. Isabela said nothing. She took his hand and held it. Forgiveness does not come easily. But it came. That night, in the private hospital room, Sophia slept in her crib beside the bed. Dante and Dmitri had refused to leave, both dozing in chairs on either side of Isabela, still holding her hands. She looked at them in the dark. These two beautiful, dangerous, complicated men who had become her everything. She thought about the journey that had brought her here. The manipulation, the violence, the fear, but also the love, the passion, the transformation. She had been sold to pay a debt, forced into a marriage with strangers, thrown into a world where death was ordinary commerce. But she had found herself in that darkness. She had discovered a strength she never knew she carried. She had found love in the most improbable place imaginable, and she had built a life more extraordinary than anything she could have dreamed. Isabela Moretti, she whispered, testing the name that had once felt like a prison and now wore like a crown. Queen, mother, warrior. Sophia stirred in the crib, tiny sounds rising from her throat. Isabela lifted her daughter and held her against her chest. The baby went calm immediately, feeling her mother's warmth. I'm going to tell you a story, my little one, Isabela whispered to Sophia, about how your mama was once a frightened girl who believed her life was ending. But it was only beginning. And one day, when you are older, you will understand that even in the darkest of circumstances, we can find light. We can find strength. We can find love. Sophia gazed up at her with wide, dark eyes, as though she understood every word. 18 months later, Isabela stood on the balcony holding Sophia, watching Dante and Dmitri spar in the courtyard below. Even now, the sight of them, shirtless, gleaming with effort, still did something permanent to her heart. Look, Sophia, she said, pointing down. Those are your papas, the most dangerous men in Italy, and the most hopelessly in love with you. As if they heard her, both men looked up. Dmitri waved, his smile enormous. Dante blew a kiss, his eyes soft in the way he reserved only for the two of them. Isabela brought Sophia inside and laid her in the grand crib. The baby fell asleep immediately, thumb in her mouth, looking like a small, perfect angel. But Isabela knew the truth. Sophia Rosa Moretti would not only be an angel. She would be a warrior like her mother, a leader like her grandmother, loved by a family that would burn the world down before it let anything touch her. She turned to find Dante and Dmitri in the doorway, freshly showered, dressed only in towels, eyes warm with something that had no name but needed none. Isabela crossed to them. Do you have any energy left for your wife? Dmitri laughed and lifted her effortlessly. For you always. They carried her to their private room, adjacent to the main bedroom, so they could always hear Sophia. They laid her down gently, and what followed, as it had 100 times before, was their own private language. Unhurried, deliberate, theirs alone. When it was over, Isabela lay between them, spent, completely at peace, and thought about the long, strange road that had delivered her here. I love you, she whispered. Both of you. So much. We love you. They answered together, their voices folding into one. Isabela closed her eyes. She felt their warmth on either side, heard Sophia's soft breathing in the next room, knew that Lucia was somewhere in her wing of the villa, already plotting the next grand scheme. Life inside a Mafia family was never simple. It was dangerous, brutal, often terrifying, but it was also flooded with love, passion, and a loyalty that transcended every boundary the outside world tried to impose on it. And Isabela Moretti, once a frightened girl sold to cover a debt, now queen of Italy's most powerful criminal empire, would not have traded a single moment of it. Because she had found something rare, something precious. She had found a home. She had found a family. She had found herself. And in the arms of two men who loved her more than their own lives, Isabela had finally found peace. Her story had begun with coercion. It ended with choice, the choice to love, to fight, to live fully, without apology and without regret. And when sleep finally took her that night, Isabela Moretti smiled, knowing that whatever tomorrow brought, whatever challenges or dangers came for them, she would face it all. Because she was not merely a wife, not merely a mother. She was a queen. And queens don't fall. They rise, crown in place, ready to conquer whatever comes next. Sofia Moretti was 7 years old when she sat in the studio with a paintbrush in her small hands, eyes fixed on the canvas in front of her. She was painting a scene of 3 figures, a woman standing between 2 men, all of them embracing. That's beautiful, cara mia. Isabela stood in the doorway, watching her daughter. Sofia had grown into a girl of striking beauty, her mother's dark hair, her father's penetrating eyes, and a sharpness of mind that left every adult in her orbit slightly breathless. Is that you, Mama? Sofia pointed to the woman in the painting. And Papa Dante and Papa Dmitri? I love all of us together. Isabela knelt beside her daughter and held her close. And we love you, Piccola, more than every star in the sky combined. Mama, Nana Lucia says that one day I'll lead the family. That I'll be like you, strong and clever. She's right. Isabela looked into her daughter's eyes and saw the future there. Another generation of power, beauty, danger. Yes, my love, one day. But right now you are a small girl, and your only job is to be happy. I am happy. Sofia smiled, wide and certain. I have the best family in the entire world. In the doorway, Dante and Dmitri appeared, suits on, returning from a meeting. They paused when they saw their wife and daughter together. Did you ever think, Dmitri murmured to his brother, that we'd end up here? With her? With Sofia? Never, Dante admitted. But I would not change a single moment of it. Neither would I. They entered the studio together and joined their family. And when Isabela looked at all of them, at Sofia, at Dante, at Dmitri, at the life they had built from chaos and violence and impossible love, she understood something with perfect clarity. Love does not always arrive the way we expect it to. Sometimes it comes through darkness, through pain, through circumstances that seem impossible to survive. But when it is real, when it finally arrives, it changes everything. For Isabela and Dante and Dmitri and their daughter Sofia, that love was everything. It was their past, their present, their future, and it would last forever.